Going live? We're live! Good afternoon and welcome to another Grace Westminster live stream.
Hi, I'm still here.
A lot of you appealed for Constantine to remain as part of the stream, so we decided to bring him back. What are you doing? Shh. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you to everybody. Happy birthday to Terry.
Happy birthday, Terry.
Happy birthday to... I'm not going to sing. But happy birthday to you. And welcome to everyone who has joined us, either a repeating stream watcher or a contributor. Could we all remain with our phones off during the duration of the stream? You are not allowed open containers near the vicinity of my computer. If you haven't joined us before, then welcome. Lots of strange things happen during the stream. But please do subscribe and press the little bell icon if you would like to be notified when we go live and when we upload videos, as we are doing throughout the week once again. And if you'd like to contribute to the coffee fund, you can do that using the super chat icon, which is below.
Yeah, that went really well last time.
Really well. He doesn't get any coffee this week, just so you know. Not allowed. He's on a coffee ban. So it's all for me.
That's why I'm so nervous.
That's right. And we will also be... I can't remember what I was going to say because I got distracted by something else. But anyway, you can also contribute using the PayPal Me link. I have to announce some contributors from last week. The PayPal contributors. We had Barra H. We had Ian Willard. Again, both of you are regular contributors, so thank you very much. And Colin Kemp and Stephen Davies and Graham Barden. So thank you very much.
Hooray.
For contributing
Thank you.
via PayPal. Yeah, because Sam says, yeah, no open, not if Con's going to throw it everywhere. You can't have any coffee.
Well, we were suggested to start a laptop fund, so we can do that instead.
My laptop is surprisingly unscathed. We did all the things that could possibly be done, so that's one good thing. Now, we today are going to talk about the D780. Why are we talking about this? Well...
Why?
Yeah, it's a good question. It was my idea.
Why, Becky? Why am I here?
The reason is that this camera kind of came out right before everything hit and everything went to hell in a handbasket, to put it nicely. Right. And it sort of didn't get the attention and the recognition that it truly deserved. We did a little sort of mini review video. Do you remember? Yeah. Brief one. It was a couple of minutes long. But we decided we wanted to do something a little bit more involved. As a lot of you will know, I had the D750. Oh, wow. People are already starting to look at that.
Thank you. Rolling in money.
Thank you, David. These strange comments are not scripted, just so you know. Thank you very much, Terry. We're going to help you celebrate your birthday, absolutely, with a celebratory cup of coffee and a slice of cake. And thank you, David, for your contribution.
Yeah. Yes. By the way, this is Becky.
Oh, I'm Becky.
Yeah.
And this is Constantine. Just in case you didn't know.
I'm still here.
I don't introduce myself very often. So, yes. So I had the D750 from when it came out in September 2014. It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
Cast your mind back 6 years, almost exactly, and we first got our deliveries of the D750. And I actually remember that launch event. It was in that super posh hotel in Piccadilly.
Oh, yeah.
I've forgotten what it's called now. Gray will remember.
Next to the Nespresso shop.
That's right, and the Ferrari shop.
And the Ferrari shop, yeah.
It's got a very strange name. But anyway, beautiful hotel. Nikon did... That was back when we could do these great launch events in
when they
nice
had money.
locations. No, when we weren't all socially distanced. And I remember looking at the presentation for the D750 and kind of going, that's the camera for me. And it was my camera. It was my chosen camera for a very long time. And the D780 kind of came along and surprised everyone, I think, because they were like, well, what's the difference?
Let's just ignore it.
So, and then we all went into lockdown. No one paid any attention to it. Now, Simon Stafford has very kindly sent us some pictures and some notes and some kind of highlights. He's spent a bit of time with the D780 reviewing it for an upcoming Nikon Owner magazine. And we were having this discussion over the phone of what's happened to the D780. It's so quiet on that front.
That's right.
You know, it's not talked about enough. So
I think it was overshadowed by Z6 and also D850 at the same time.
Kind of, even though they came out like a year before.
That's right.
Just nobody wanted to pay attention.
What happened, Becky?
We're going to give the D780 some love. It's funny, John says the D750 was the only camera he sold. He didn't like it, which is interesting. Maybe it wasn't for everyone.
It wasn't for me.
It wasn't for you. It wasn't a U camera, that's for sure. Thank you very much, Richard, for your contribution to the coffee fund. To see, Nick is saying the D750 was a great workhorse camera, because I used it for events and weddings and concerts and stuff like that. It was my workhorse camera alongside, occasionally I would use a D4S for serious, like really serious stuff, but the 750 pretty much did everything I needed it to. So I was really very attached to it. I was very reluctant. I actually got the first D750 in the shop by accident.
Happy accident.
It was a happy accident. I knew I was going to get one. I just didn't expect it to be that one.
You just saw it and you grabbed it.
It was
and
something
you ran away.
like that. No, I borrowed the first one that we got. I actually borrowed because it was going to be our demo, and I forgot to bring it back. Then I had to invoice myself.
It's still in your house.
Forgot to, and it was exactly. It was one of those like, oh, oops. Well, I guess that's mine now. And then I had to invoice myself for it. Now, AM says D780 gives hope that there will be a D880. Well, I don't know, but we're going to talk about the specs of this one. Simon is on hand to answer any questions you have. He's actually in the chat today. So if you do have any questions and we don't quite catch them, you can go ahead and ask him. We're also just going to highlight some of the features and compare it to the Z6 and also the D750 and a few other bodies, because I would say the D780 is kind of like a hybrid camera.
It is. I think it's got the best features from Z6 and it's got the best features out of DSLRs.
Yes, exactly. Andy says you need to get a straw.
Nah.
It's just going to give me a minor heart attack every single time he picks up his glass. So nice easy questions for Simon and for us, please. We're feeling very delicate this Friday, but we'll talk about that. So the D750, as I say, September 2014, 24 megapixels, 51 autofocus points, X-Speed 4 processor. It was no, don't get bored. I haven't, wait.
You've just started.
Wait, I've just started. It came out just after the what did it just come out after? The D810. That's why it had newer stuff. That's right, because the D810 was earlier on that year.
Yes.
You're just going to agree with me, that's fine. So the D750 had some of the things from the D4S, I remember. It had some things from the D810, and they added this highlight priority metering. They'd added a few little bits and pieces,
That stage thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And so it was an odd camera because it was not all metal and it still had a pop-up flash and it didn't have a 10-pin socket.
So it was a professional camera, but it wasn't professional at the same time. I mean, let's just talk about this wheel over here.
Yeah. Why?
So it had this semi-professional layout that they used on the D7000 series cameras.
Yes.
Which I didn't find particularly useful.
I think, it depends on what you're used to. Because before that, I had a D700. So going from a 700 to a 750 was a weird... It was ergonomically...
adjustment.
It was very strange.
But at the same time, it was a smaller resolution. So it was 24 megapixels instead of 36, which would appeal to reportage, documentary, and wedding photographers. Yeah.
I mean, at the time that the D810 came out, I knew for sure that wasn't the progression I wanted to make. So that's why the 750 was kind of the sweet spot. There's quite a few people that are surprised that you're allowed on the show. after last week's incident. John says you could test if the D750 is waterproof. But don't do that. The water stays over there, away from the microphone, away from everything. Hector says, I would have loved the D780 if it didn't have an anti-aliasing filter. Interesting. That's a good point.
How big the difference this is, really?
It's very small difference. I suppose it gives you that slight edge of sharpness, but then you may suffer from a bit of moire. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, if you remember the D800, D800E, the E didn't have the anti-aliasing filter, the 800 did, so the E was like fractionally sharper.
Yeah, if you're wearing something like this, it in the right situation, it would create some sort of effect.
Yeah, it's like almost like an oily pattern. So that's what we talk about when we say moire. So usually if you remove the AA filter, you sometimes see that more.
We should have a whole stream on discussion how to pronounce moire and bokeh.
Please no.
Don't you think?
French words, Japanese words, all spoken by neither person.
Or Nikon.
Or no, let's not do that. So D780 has the best of Z6 and DSLR, but I guess you couldn't put your Z lenses on it.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. If you're looking at a Z camera, obviously it takes both. A couple of people, like Andy mentions the D610, for example. The D610, 600, 610, 750, they were all kind of bundled into that same, I think they call it prosumer is the fancy word.
Yeah. So even 750 is kind of prosumer, semi-professional, but it was above 600 series overall.
Exactly. And as Simon points out, the chassis of the 780 is far more rigid. I mean, we've got a lens on here, and obviously this is our demo. Don't do this at home, folks, but you've seen me do this before. The body itself is far more sealed than even the D750 and the 610. So I didn't check out the weights. I don't know if it's heavier. Probably a little bit, because it's a bit more solid. We're going to talk about the things that it's missing as well, but we'll come to that. So essentially with the 780, what they did is they put in the same resolution sensor as the Z6. They put in the same processor, which is the X-Speed 6 processor. So that's 2 generations after the D750. It does have the same autofocus system through the viewfinder, although it's supposedly faster. It's got the same generation. It compares to the D500 and the D850.
That's right. And from our test, it was a lot better in low light.
Yeah, than the D750?
Yeah, absolutely. It would hunt less, basically.
Yeah, the 750 I found, although it was better than, funnily enough, the D4S in focusing in low light, because it was a bit newer, it's still, the D850 is better in terms of low light autofocus. So if you were looking at AF speed, you'd be comparing it to kind of D500, D850, just with fewer points. So still got 51 points there. Michael is sorry that he's 10 minutes late. So it's okay, Michael, we forgive you.
Always forgiven.
Eves thinks our pronunciation of moiré is excellent. So, no, thank you.
That's how British sounds.
That's right. Now, Nick Can says, delayed Olympics have made both the Nikon D6 the shortest living pro DSLR before the pro mirrorless cameras are unveiled. Well, we shall be, let's not to say anything, but we will be talking about
D7 next week when it's announced.
Yeah. We'll be talking about something of great interest next Friday. So please do not miss out on that live stream. We will also be uploading videos throughout the week.
That's
surprise!
Right. Nothing has been announced yet. It's not on Nikon website. There's no countdown available.
No, there is a countdown. I talked about this last week. But we will, but now that we know that there's a countdown, we will be talking about stuff next week. Stuff that we can't talk about right now.
But we know.
But the D6 is a very different kettle of fish to the D780. I mean, if you're doing sports photography, and I would say specifically sports, I wouldn't even say wildlife, because you can actually use the other bodies for wildlife, no problem. This, Simon has said, you can easily use for bird photography. Its tracking is fast enough for that. If you're doing professional, sort of Olympic level sports photography, the D6 is the one to look at. If it's pretty much anything else, then that's why we talk about all the other bodies. So it has it has the same backside illuminated sensor. Ooh. BSI.
I like backside illuminated sensor in my camera.
That's right, exactly. Now I'm going to just show you with a quick turn of the screen. Did I do that right? Yes, I did. Well done, me. So I wanted to show you this illustration. Now this basically explains the difference between backside illumination and frontside illumination, and I actually did a diagram a few weeks back of this, but it's much easier to see it from Wikipedia. And it's in full color as well, full Technicolor. Mm-hmm. So essentially the photodiode layer here and this bit is on top of the wiring instead of beneath it, which simply means that it's more sensitive to light, if you like, or it'll absorb more light. It's easier, to put it in really simple layman's terms, over the front side illuminated sensor where you've got the wiring above the photodiode layer and the substrate. So there's a super technical. Constantine's left me because he can't stand it when I talk about the geeky stuff. But that is what it is in a nutshell. So for anyone that was interested, you can come back now.
Have you finished?
I have finished. Good. So for anyone that wants to understand why it's important to have a backside illuminated sensor, it makes much more sense to do that. You will have a sensor that is much better and more sensitive to light, let's just say.
And it's backside.
And it's on the backside, that's right. Ian, thank you very much for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. I'm going to answer your question in a second, John, because we're coming to that. Ed says, after enjoying a D3, nothing's been the same in terms of ergonomics and handling for me.
It's like a first love, isn't it?
It is, but D3, D4, D5, D6, they're all kind of cut from a similar
D7.
cloth. D7. Gary says that he won't tell anyone if we tell him what's happening next week.
Well, our coffee fund
Yeah,
is accepting donations.
No, we don't take bribes.
Well,
Sam says
in
she thought
Russia,
it was
we do take bribes.
Yeah.
So.
But we don't here. Sam thinks it was pronounced moire. Moire? I don't know how to do that with the distractions today. My goodness. So, yeah, I've shown that. Sorry, I didn't mean to flip over there. So BSI is more efficient at capturing light, and this in turn helps to improve ISO noise performance. Thank you very much, Simon. In terms of the low light performance, you will expect similar results on the D780 to the Z6 as well. So it's
pretty much the same, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And the metering system, I believe, is also pretty much the same. Obviously, the Z6 has the EVF and the live view sort of working in conjunction with one another. Now, what happens with the D780 is obviously you've got an optical viewfinder, but when you switch over to live view on the back, I've got a lens cap on, so it's not going to do anything, but when you switch over to live view on the back, it essentially turns into a Z6. It performs in the same way as a Z6 would in that respect. So,
would you say it's the best Nikon DSLR in terms of live view performance?
I would, yeah.
And I would agree.
Because things like, for example, when you're shooting video with a DSLR, before the D780 and before the Z cameras, it was pretty much impossible to use live view for proper functionality.
Yeah, we talked about it the other day, isn't it? That shooting with D850 or any other camera, the autofocus is pretty sluggish. It doesn't look good when you're recording. So what we would normally do is you would pre-focus first. We would adjust the depth of field to allow for a bit of movement backwards and forwards, and we would start to record. But with something like Z6 or D780, you just turn on follow focus.
That's right.
And it effectively does those things where it's just refocusing on the closest subject.
That's what we've got now. We're buffering a bit, so I guess the internet demons are not working in our favour today, which is very frustrating. Hopefully it won't buffer too much. So exactly what you said. I found I was shooting some video at home, and I had the D850 on the tripod to record video, and even with pre-focusing, without having someone to direct and focus and manual focus for me, I was finding it next to impossible to get a result that I was actually happy with. And when you're using because they have AF face detection in live view.
Yeah, but it's not as good.
Oh, it's so slow.
Here's a life hack for you. So you get some sort of vase with flowers and you put it on the level where you would be sitting.
I tried that.
So you'd focus on that, and then you'd come in, remove the vase,
and then you
throw it away. And then here you are, all nice and sharp.
Excellent. I will try that next time. I had a plant. It didn't work. It's still, because I tend to...
It doesn't have a plant recognition.
No, it doesn't have plant recognition, no. I need a little cardboard cutout of myself to work out where I'm pre-focusing.
That's what we were planning to do with Simon, but...
Oh, yeah, we were going to have Simon in virtual here, potentially. Or a cardboard cutout. Next time, exactly. So, Simon says the live view in the D780 makes live view in any other Nikon DSLR look positively agricultural. It's true. That's a really nice way to put it. It's a very polite way to put it.
Very French.
But it is kind of... It's so primitive in comparison to the D780, and when you get used to shooting in live view with Z cameras,
and when you get used to good things,
when you get
used to,
you don't. Then you turn around and use the D850, and you think, "Hold on a second, it's so slow."
So what we're saying is D850 is pretty much obsolete nowadays.
No,
isn't it? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not what I'm saying at all. Hector says even with photos, the D850 and the D500 struggle with autofocusing in live view. Focus peaking is a lifesaver. Yeah, I mean I use the live view quite a lot on the D850. But again, I've found it's just 9-10 times easier with the Z cameras. So then I just default to those if I'm going to need to use live view for anything.
And if you're shooting from some awkward angles or something where you don't want to get on your knees or something, it's just nice to use a live view, point it, let's say, at the subject and just take a shot.
Exactly, and it's quite good for candid sort of street photography as well, or photography where you want to shoot from the hip.
Waist level shooting, things like that.
Which you can do with the D850, no problem, but you will find more misses than hits in terms of focusing that way. So
it's a little bit slower. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Now to answer, I think it was Gary's question a bit earlier, and as Simon actually commented for us. So the shutter speed range is 900 seconds. So it's got that nice long, what's it, 15 minutes exposure? That's how much it is if I do maths.
Have you got a calculator?
No, I don't.
No.
To 8,000th of a second. So whereas the D750...
Oh yeah, it was 4,000 of a second.
Was 4,000th of a second, and the slower shutter speed was the usual 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Or bulb, obviously. But that just means that you could... The D780 is almost... It has astrophotographers in mind, but it also has... If you want to shoot very, very fast moving, or what do you use 8,000th of a second for? I don't have it on my film camera.
I'd say, bullet going through the vase with flowers, you haven't seen that type of shot.
Super high speed.
Or like airplane with propellers spinning, but then you can freeze each blade in the motion, so you don't get this circle, which will look very awkward in the air.
Yes, that's true.
So you can do things like that.
Okay, so that's why you might need 8,000th of a second.
And a good light.
And good light. You need a lot of light for 8,000th of a second, that's for sure. Now, in terms of the ISO range, I looked at it, but I forgot to write it down. So I'm going to look at it while I've got the camera in front of me. So base ISO is 100, and it goes up to, when does it stop? Goodness me, 51,200 ISO. And then you've got high... It goes up to, that's probably 250,000 ISO when you go up to those high levels. It does that.
Yeah.
Or 250,000 ISO equivalent, something like that. Now, when we first got this, I remember you went out and did some comparisons at 2 different ISO levels.
I did?
Yeah, you did. You don't remember. I remember.
Yes.
Never mind. You shot one shot. I've got the shots, but for model... what's the word? Model release reasons, I can't show them today. I will show you some other shots instead.
It was pictures of me.
It was. We had shot, I think, like about 400 or 800 ISO, and then we bumped it up to about 6,400. Couldn't see a difference. In fact, Simon's got some pictures for us. Most of them, I think, are quite low ISOs. What did you shoot at when you shot with this today? Also quite low? It's quite sunny outside. You didn't look at the EXIF? No? Okay, fine.
I think it's around 400.
Okay,
so,
well, we're going to have a look anyway. Also, blurring water, 8,000th, so you can shoot a wide open iris in full sunlight conditions.
That's true.
Okay.
So if you don't have ND filters, then you can stick to 8,000 and shoot maybe at something like 1.4.
Yeah, exactly. I prefer the Z7 ISO range, 64. Yeah, having base 64 is very handy. This does go down to, I think, like a simulated 64 ISO by going low 1, 2,
So here's 3. The question. Who is using the higher ISO than 6400? Raise the hand.
Sometimes I use higher than 6400.
I shoot at 64. No, 6400. So if you shoot at like 8,000 or 10,000, the question is why? No, I mean, I understand the logic of it.
I will tell you one situation in which I had to.
Coming from film,
I know, you wouldn't think so. I had a photo shoot I'm going to be really fancy now. I had a photo shoot in the Royal Opera House. And I was not allowed to use flash. To be honest, my life would have been much easier if I'd had silent shooting mode, which this has and which my D750 didn't have. And I wasn't really allowed to make very much noise. It was a recording rehearsal. So everything had to be super quiet. No flashes, very dimly lit. I was shooting at 10,000 ISO at points where I didn't have a choice. I tried to keep it below, but there were a few shots that I shot at 10,000. Obviously, there was a lot of noise reduction to be done afterwards.
We are spoiled with technology, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. I wouldn't have been able to do it with the D700.
Or with film.
It
would be quite difficult.
It would be very hard.
Or very grainy.
Incredibly grainy, and they probably wouldn't have been very happy with the shots. But
That's true.
It were, they were. So there we go.
It's nice to have.
David says,
I agree with you.
Thank you. It does have its uses, particularly in like theatre situations and stuff like that. Sam uses 6400 with the D850. David says 6400 plus in badly lit sports stadiums. Stadia, is that the plural of stadiums?
That's a Google streaming service for video games, but that's another topic.
Yeah, maybe it is for in Greek, exactly. 7,100 shoots 8,000th of a second. Does it? Wow. Okay, I learned something. Amazing. The D750 didn't. That was my point.
of a second, confirmed by me this morning.
We had a look. Well, I never had to shoot faster than 4,000th of a second with the D750. It was never something that really occurred to me. Hector says he was also using high ISO inside woods. Yeah, using like a telephoto lens where you've got a smaller aperture. Yes, you would need to. So there are uses for high ISOs, just not necessarily with the... If you're a studio portrait photographer, then you're probably not going to use above 6,400. So the other thing that I wanted to mention that was a little bit of a pet peeve for me with the D750 was the buffer size. A couple of events, I found the buffer filled up way too quickly, and particularly at that crucial moment where you basically got to spray and pray, as they put it very nicely. And if the buffer filled up, I would then have to wait for the buffer to process all those images so that I could do another burst. If you've got like the mayor and some celebrity and another person doing a ribbon cutting, that's really no good. Can you tell I'm speaking from experience?
You definitely don't want to do that.
Like, don't go there. So I had, and also I think for some reason I didn't have like a SanDisk Extreme Pro blah blah card.
Ooh, I have an example about high ISOs and low light and cutting the ribbon. I had an event where they were signing a big contract. There was some big nuclear corporation.
Oh my goodness.
And my flash failed on me. It literally broke, and it's the first time. And I was in a different room of the hotel, and I had to run downstairs to get another flash. So I couldn't do that because they were doing it like
right
literally
there,
now.
The ink was going down.
So D850, 6400 ISO,
yeah,
and I got away with it.
Well, there you go. This wasn't supposed to be like a trip down memory lane, but all the times that we needed to really abuse the technology,
absolutely.
These are it. Interesting to note that the D750 is 175 grams lighter than the D850. Yes, that's right, Norm. So in terms of a weighty camera, the 850, while you're there, do you want to Google what the D780 weight is? Because I didn't do that. In fact, Constantine's going to be right on it right now so that we can...
So we all know that the heavier the camera, the more professional it is. Let's be honest.
Supposedly.
So it's 185 grams more professional than D750.
Yeah, sure, if you say so.
Simple
but the D780 is lighter, but not as light as the D750.
Okay.
I believe.
840 grams.
Yeah.
With battery and SD memory card.
Right, so the D750 I remember was about 700. Yeah, 750.
And it's interesting, the way they put the grams, 840 grams with battery and SD memory card, but without body cap.
It's very specific.
Makes all the difference.
Very, very specific. We are, okay, I have to address the elephant in the room here. We are going to do a live stream on the subject of the F6.
Looks like it's me again.
No, not you this time. Because so many people are saying like RIP F6. Yes, the F6 was discontinued. I am going to give that all of the attention it deserves.
All the love.
All the love. Not next week, but the week after.
The stream is going to be with me, since I'm a professional film photographer.
And you're an expert shooting with the F6,
That's right.
Yeah. But anyway, John says if the flash broke, he'd just send the wife out to get a new one from the car. But didn't have that ability at that particular shoot, if I recall correctly. Any newcomers that don't know John's wife, she is a famous person.
She is the best.
She is the best in this live stream. Now, why does the D780 have an AA filter? This is a really good question. I don't know. The Z6, does it have an AA filter? I've never asked that question. I've never been asked that question.
I don't really see how important it is, because a lot of those things, I mean, obviously, you know, with those things, the difference is so little nowadays.
Yeah.
And you can get the very similar result with the sharpening techniques in the post. So in terms of this, I personally don't see why it's a big deal, but for some photographers, I guess it's a big thing. Obviously, medium format photographers,
they want the
best resolution possible.
There you go.
But I think that the difference is very, very little in the way.
And Simon has answered the question. The Z6 has an AA filter, the Z7 does not.
Here
so there you go. That's why, because the 780...
It's the same sensor, effectively,
yeah.
So which means it has AA filter as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Z7 effectively is D850 sensor, and it doesn't have AA filter.
That's right. Now, Simon's saying that the buffer capacity is one of the primary reasons for upgrading. I would certainly say that the bigger buffer is a massive help. It also shoots 7 frames per second. I believe the 750 off the top of my head was about 5.5 frames per second. Might have been 6. I never found that I needed that. But if you are doing, I suppose, birds in flight, that's the same frames per second as the D850, just to give you a comparison. If you really do need something which has massive frame bursts, then look at the Z6 or look at the D500, or obviously there's the D5, D6 if you really need 14 frames per second. But in live view, so effectively in Z6 mode, as I call it, it shoots 12 frames per second. So in terms of a DSLR, because the D850 doesn't even do that, I don't think. It doesn't have that capability. It shoots silently, but it doesn't have the same kind of bumped up frame burst.
That's right.
So if you do need the faster frame burst, then you can pop it into live view mode, and it's like using a Z6.
Yeah, 750 and 780 are designed to be kind of a best all-rounder, suitable for, 24 megapixel sensor gives a reasonably small file size. So for professional photographers, like wedding photographers, is quite useful because you don't have to handle a lot of data. It's not specifically a wildlife camera or sports camera, so it's not designed to give you, let's say, over 10 frames per second or something like this. But the frame rate is fast enough for most situations. So as a good all-rounder, I would say 780 is probably kind of the best camera in a way. And then the next one up would be D850 in my opinion.
I would say so. Now, someone asked me let me just put this onto. Someone said, does it have a kind of shutter shock? It's not as bad as the D850.
No.
Not at all. The D850
I think it's probably the prism is smaller, so, that maybe because of that the mirror is smaller as well.
Because the D850 has this very massive clunk when you take a picture with it.
It's almost like medium format, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
bam,
it's not that bad. but it is very, very loud, and you know that it's happening. It does have 2 SD card slots, Woody, just to answer that question. Norm says lack of an AA filter lets him achieve outstanding images right out of the camera. That's fair enough. Hector says for wildlife photography, not having an AA filter will not soften the feathers. Maybe means the other way around.
Yeah, you get a little bit extra. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Andy's saying like the lenses make up for it by having the extra coatings and stuff, so you don't necessarily need to have no AA filter. This could be a whole topic of debate.
That's the thing. I don't want to kind of spark an argument about that. I absolutely agree that it does give you a better resolution. I bought D800E myself and not the standard version back at the
fancy.
time. But in a way, while it does give you that, it's also possible to achieve similar results.
Yes.
Maybe not 100%, but similar results in the post.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Trailcam Terry says that he's just bought the Z5. It was a toss-up between that and the D780, which is an interesting comparison. I think if you want to... Sorry, I just have to interrupt my own chain of thought there. Thank you very much to Studio Renee for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. So the Z5, Z6, those cameras, because again, Z5 has the same sensor. It's a little bit...
No, it's not backside illumination.
No, but it's the same resolution.
The same resolution, that's right.
That's right, but it doesn't have something else. Is the smaller AF area, or is it the same AF points?
It's the same as that 6.
Yes.
So, but the problem there was the reason why you have smaller frame rate is because the sensor doesn't have as fast readouts as, let's say, backside illuminated sensor.
Right.
And because of that, you got reduction in frames per second.
There we go. So if that isn't so much of an issue for you, then the Z5 is a lovely mirrorless camera. And certainly over in the US, the price differential between the Z5 and the Z6 is even greater. And between this one as well, because the D780 retails for about just over 2,000 Great British pounds. It is a bit cheaper, I think, if you do the conversion in US dollars, but the Z5 is what, like 1,500, something like that, and then the Z6 is between the two, so it's a bit of an odd one in terms of price point.
But also in US, they don't have added sales tax on top of the price. So when you actually pay, you get whatever state tax it has. I think it's something around 8% in New York or something like that. That added on top of the total, effectively. So.
Well, thank you. I'll remember that if I ever go shopping in America. In the US of A.
Fun
fact, exactly. Yeah. I know the sales tax thing always confuses me. So Simon mentions that the shutter mechanism of the mechanical shutter of the 780 has been beefed up from the shutter used in the 750. It's extremely well damped. I think it also means that the shutter life expectancy, if I remember correctly, is longer in the 780 than the 750. Now, Nikon didn't explain why they didn't make a vertical grip for the D780. If you notice on the bottom here, there's no contact points for it, but it was a similar thing in the D7500, if you remember. That camera also, which is like the DX kind of equivalent of this one, if you like, 20 megapixels, little brother to the D500, also doesn't take a battery grip. So if you are a lover of the vertical grip, or you want the extra sort of battery bolted onto the bottom there, then the D780 isn't the one for you.
So kind of two major complaints about this camera, isn't it? It's the lack of battery pack, which, like today I was shooting portraits, and I really needed that grip because I'm so used to have this shutter release button, the way, like if you hold the camera. Then I personally, if I would have D850, I would shoot this D850 instead.
Yes.
Because having hand in here while you're shooting portrait, it's not great feeling.
No.
So why Nikon? Why? But the second thing was the lack of built-in flash, and this is a polarizing thing because as professional photographers, you say, "Oh, why would you need a built-in flash?" But it's got a lot of useful features. As a built-in flash on any Nikon camera that has one, it's not very good flash. It's just there for really if you need to light something very quickly, and that's it.
Yeah.
But the benefit of that is having a basically infrared trigger that would allow you to trigger your external flashes, like let's say it's B700, it's B900, remotely. So you can call it the Creative Lighting System, or CLS, and that's effectively a free thing that's built into your camera. If you want to buy an accessory to allow for that, prepared to pay about 250 or 300 pounds for either SU800 or for wireless remote controller set, which is not available anyway.
Well, also, as a point on the wireless remote controller, so on the flash thing, Nikon moved away from the creative lighting system, so all their flashes are backwards compatible with it, but all the new cameras and the SB5000 use the wireless radio
That's right.
lighting system, WRL, and that requires I've talked about this before, the WR10 kit, which unfortunately, if your camera has a built-in flash, it's more than likely it doesn't work with the wireless remote lighting system. So
but it's SB5000 though allows for radio triggering, but also for infrared triggering.
Yes, it does.
So the built-in flash would have to fire, and you can power it down as much as you can, but it still has to actually fire like a flash effectively to trigger the remote flash. So it's basically the infrared spectrum of light will trigger the flash.
So I think that it has something to do with, I think this is my personal, I have no official statement here, but I think that the reason why they've pulled out those things is to make this camera more robust.
Yes, I agree with you.
Its weaker points are the hot shoe and that kind of flash area. And then also in terms of the base, if you had contacts in the bottom and let's say you were traveling with the camera and you dunk it in some pond water or something like that, that's where it's going to get access into the camera. Whereas as it is, the base is actually quite well protected up until about there, and obviously you don't want to get water in your battery chamber, but it's just an interesting, I think it's an interesting play off. It's like, don't have the grip, don't have the flash, but do have all the other features from the Z6. The Z6 also doesn't have a built-in flash, so
D850 doesn't have one. No. D6 doesn't have one.
We're kind of getting used to not having them these days.
Because we are professionals.
That's right. So if you're a professional, you don't have a built-in flash in your camera. The other thing I would say is that the smaller cameras, the older, like the little D3000 and 5000 series, their built-in flashes don't work with the creative lighting system. So you just have to, if you do need that built-in flash functionality and you're looking at one of those smaller bodies, just check compatibility first. So as I said, 2 memory card slots, 2 SD card slots, really easy to get hold of these days, so not expensive. One little point that Simon, you're doing it just to spite me.
I came prepared.
Well, I'd like to thank Gary for his contribution to the coffee fund.
Thank you, Gary.
That's very much appreciated. You keep that away from my computer.
You see, my problem was I had a Nikon mug.
It was jinxed.
It was jinxed because it was oval shape, so the base wasn't as wide.
Okay.
Now,
so it's actually all about gravity and surface.
Exactly. Science.
Science. So one of the complaints that Simon made was, interestingly, not having the multi-selector button here, which I actually use quite a lot.
Yeah, it's quite useful.
And because I'm a left eye shooter, if I then start moving my thumb around, I might poke myself in the eye. I've done that before. So that is a missing thing. It does have a dedicated AF on button. Weirdly, they've put the autofocus, auto exposure lock button underneath, which is
So I think
new
D750 had only one button instead of
That's
the two.
right.
So
you
they
had to
added
share
second one.
ownership of what you wanted to do with it. I always used it as an AF on button anyway, but so it does have that dedicated. I'm going to show some pictures in a second.
Ooh, let's have a look at the pictures.
Yeah, but I wanted to just say before I forget, it has USB charging.
No way.
Can we just... Yeah. Lots of people are saying, oh no, the coffee's come out. We want a travel mug with a lid for you so that you drink it like a beaker so that it's covered over. I know, just put that right...
I have it on my lap.
Just keep it there. All right, so we are going to... I'm going to flip over.
Speaking of coffee, I was thinking, how can we top the last stream?
Not by throwing the coffee on me. Oh, it's not coming out full screen, which is very annoying. Will it let me zoom in a little bit? So this is one of Simon's images. Now this is an architectural image.
That's nice.
So Simon's comment on this was that the D780 has a bright optical viewfinder, which aids composition. I'd also imagine that in a situation like this, it's much easier to compose using the viewfinder. This was with the 24-70 f2.8e and aperture f8 and 2/50th of a second and ISO 100. So it's kind of standard daylight settings, if you like. This one is a Canada Goose and was shot with the 800mm f5.6 at ISO 400, 6/40th of a second.
That's a nice shot.
It is lovely. Now this one, let me zoom in a bit on this one. So these are cloister roofs, a cloister roof, cloisters anyway.
Oysters.
How many times can I say the word cloister? So he says here the 780 performs very well at higher ISO settings. This is ISO 800. This isn't even pushed that much actually. It could have been pushed.
It looks very clean. You don't see the noise at all.
It's at a 15th of a second, and also with the 24-70 f2.8e. Then we have Froggy. I think we got Frog. Come on, internet. There we go. So here we have a little frog. This actually looks, yes, he looks so grumpy. This looks very, very sharp when you're not sending it over compressed or everything.
He looks a bit bloated, isn't it? Had some burrito or something.
That's right. This was shot with the 105 macro, and Simon says articulating monitor screen makes light work of low camera angles. This was shot at f11, 30th of a second at ISO 400. Then we have an egret. Now the egret, this is matrix metering. So if you look at a scene like this, you would expect that the egret would be well underexposed because of the amount of light in the scene, right? So actually the 780's done very, very well. It's very dependable in terms of metering. This was also shot with the 800mm 5.6 at ISO 400.
Yeah, because the bird would come out almost as a silhouette.
Yeah, exactly, against that kind of light. So I'm quite impressed with its capability there. This one is the lamp. This was magnify. He says the ability to magnify the live view image makes checking composition and depth of field very easy. So you can check what you're doing.
It's a nice composition, isn't it?
It's lovely. And that's with the 70s 200 2.8 ISO 100 on that one. I think there's one more. Yes. Now this one, you have to appreciate it really full screen to get the expanse of it. This was shot with the, where is it? I was thinking it was shot with the perspective control lens, but it's not. It's shot with the 24-70 f2.8, and this is the University of Glasgow. And Simon says D780 renders excellent colour and contrast. Now we went and did a few little shots this morning, so you might recognise. Oh, hang on, there's another one. That's the egret. The other one was a cormorant. Sorry. This is the egret. Wow, and it's not, the highlights aren't blown out either, which is very impressive considering that.
It's cool. You can see the details in the feather.
It's very cool. Right, there we go. For some reason, it showed me out of sequence. This is a lovely shot.
It's my shot.
It's one that Con took of a local gangster rapper.
Yeah, Sam the Gangster.
Sam the Gangster. So this was shot. What lens did you use? 85.
Just let me plug him in as well. So his album is on spotify.com/Sam the Gangster from Luton. So that one was shot with 85mm 1.4 lens, and it was shot at
You picked this one over
2.5 at 1/60th of a second.
There you go.
ISO 100.
100. Okay, and then this one. Do you have the spec?
That was 28 1.8 for E lens.
Nice.
And
Nice choice.
I just thought, like, it's a nice wide angle shot. He doesn't look too distorted. That one shot at 5.6 at 100th of a second at ISO 100.
Gosh, you stuck to the low ISOs then.
You know me.
This is everybody's favourite director-producer of the live stream and marketing director of Grey's Westminster.
/ Princess Leia.
/ Princess Leia, that's right.
All right,
tell me the specs of this
find
one.
her. So that one was shot also on 85mm 1.4. I'm a simple man.
Yeah, you like your 85mm.
800th of a second to freeze the subject at f2 to blur the garish cars at the back. So that's what we've done. About 100 takes. One came out really well.
Just one out of 100. Well, you use the frame burst, I'm guessing.
We're doing frame burst, and we applying custom profiles, picture controls in the camera.
Was this like a portrait one, or was this a completely customized
It was
one?
modified portrait mode, effectively. So just when you press right instead of OK, it gives you all sorts of settings where you can adjust.
Yeah.
So that was that.
Lovely. I love that shot. And then this one's very nice.
Oh, it's very dreamy, this one,
very
isn't
dreamy.
it? So that one was also shot at 85mm, because that's the only lens I had. And this one I shot at 3.2 at 100th of a second at ISO 100.
Very nice. I think there's one more. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Sam the Gangster again.
Sam without the Luton tattoo this time.
Again, monochrome picture control with the contrast shoot up effectively to extremes.
I love it. It does look like an album cover, for sure, on that one. So there we go. So those are just some shots for you to get an idea of what the camera can do. Let's just see. So cormorant. Yeah, I got the pictures the wrong way around. I'm sorry. Cormorants are very nasty birds. Goodness me. So you save the laptop and Becky's sanity. So the coffee, we need a beaker for that. Right there. Simon's answering your questions in the comments, so if you have further sort of slightly more technical questions, you can put them there too. There's not necessarily any point in me repeating them because you'll probably see there. Now, a couple of things. Okay, so we talked about the lack of hot shoe flash, and we talked about the lack of
battery pack. Now,
just in terms of the price point, the D750 when it first came out, I remember, was about £1,800. I think it was 1,899.
D850.
D750.
750.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
D750. D780, D750, D850.
Potato.
So the 750 was, I think, 1,899 for the body only, and then a bit more for the 24 and 20K. I mean, it could have been a bit more than that, actually. It could have been 1,949. I don't
There's always a bit more.
Have price lists. But if you compare that to the D780 as a direct upgrade, and its RRP launch price was about 2,100.
Is it 2,199 or 2,299? I think it's 2,199.
I think it was 2,199.
2,199. And nowadays 2,045.
Or thereabouts.
So haven't done in price that much.
No, but it's just interesting to see the gap. So the 750 being just shy of 2,000 when it first came out, and this one being just over 2,000. It's not actually that expensive if you compare it to what the 750 was.
If you compare the RRP of a new product with RRP of the old product when it first came out, then the price difference is not that much. There's always a small jump in price, and unfortunately it happens to all products from all manufacturers. Yeah. But it's I would say unfair to compare the current price, let's say, of D750 you can still buy with the price of D780 because the gap is quite dramatic. But the good thing about it is we have two price points. So if you want an entry-level DSLR full frame, 780, I think it's set at fantastic price. Yes, because it is basically a pro body in pretty much every respect. I mean, okay, fine, we don't have the circular viewfinder thing, and we don't have a 10-pin socket. Maybe that would... I don't think that's so much of an issue these days. It's very easy. If you have 10-pin socket accessories, then I guess it is. But again, let's say remote release for D780, it's not very expensive. I think it's about £25 compared to, let's say, MC30, which is close to 100 or so. It's over 100, yeah. And also it's the same as the Z6 and the Z5 and the Z7. It's the same accessories. Simon mentions, and it's definitely worth mentioning, is that I had it highlighted on one of my pieces of paper here, the battery capacity is almost double in terms of, or more than double, he says, than that of the D750. I never had a problem myself with the D750 battery life, but the older ENEL 15s now, if I put one in a D850, they don't last very long, do they?
Lasts about an hour. So it also takes the newer style battery. Have we got the newer one in here? Yeah, we do. No, we don't. We've got the old one. The ENL 15.
You got A, B, and C.
That's some of that coffee. I'm getting all the numbers wrong now. And if you have the 10-pin accessories, you probably also have a pro-level body and don't need the D780.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Precisely.
And now we can also trigger cameras with snap bridge if you can connect them together. So, you know.
I can.
She can.
I'm the person that can flawlessly connect SnapBridge. I don't know why. I have the magic gifts. But SnapBridge works very nicely with the D780. It just transfers images no problem. You can transfer raw images now with SnapBridge with the current updates of it as well. So if you wanted to fill up your phone in about 10 seconds, then you can do that. As Sam points out, the 10-pin socket is pretty pointless now, unless you're using old like MC30, MC36, that's the intervalometer. Yeah. You don't need it, really. I don't think.
You do, but you don't.
Why do you need the intervalometer? Tell me, because I think...
intervalometer is definitely built in, but what you could do with MC36 or 36A is to have the exposures longer than 30 seconds.
Yes.
So, and that's something that is built into D780 right now.
Exactly. There's one other thing that I wanted to mention, and that is that the, actually two other things. The D780 has the focus shift shooting function.
Ooh.
So, same as the Z7 and the Z6 and the D850, basically all the new cameras that are coming out. It also has the negative digitizing capability for your slides and negatives. So basically it will work with an ES2. That always makes me happy when a camera includes that. It's not necessary to copy your slides using a camera that has that function, but if you want very quick converted JPEGs, it's the easiest way to do it. So it's got
That's true. Did we mention face recognition in live view mode and eye recognition?
Not really. You can touch
it's
on
there.
it.
So the same as on Z6. Pretty much the video is the same as Z6. And also in stills and video modes, you have follow focus which has face recognition and eye recognition.
It's very useful for both stills and video, but specifically I find for video it's fantastic. Just a little touch on the video, because we're like running out of time. The hour flew by. But
good company.
Yeah, that's right. That's me, right? So the video is 4K, just the same. What was the thing about N-Log? Because you said I need to check the N-Log thing.
So you can do N-Log. So you can record 10-bit video externally. So if you have Atomos Ninja 5 attached to the camera, and you can buy some sort of thing that goes on top. So you can record in 10-bit N-Log. So that's a Nikon, N-Log stands for Nikon log, and is basically kind of flat profile, which allows you then in video editor to apply different LUTs.
Right.
And LUT stands for lookup table. So effectively, it's a glorified Instagram filter, but
for video.
But professional.
Professional.
So what it doesn't have is the Z6 RAW functionality, where you can send the camera to Nikon, pay £200, and they'll do the RAW upgrade for you.
Right. Okay.
So that's what it is. But you can still record an N-Log video. So if you're into video production, that's quite good. Yeah. So we're shooting our streams on Z6 and all our videos on Z6s, but effectively we could do the same with D780.
Yeah, exactly. Or the Z50 now. I've been shooting some vlogs on the Z50 because it's a tidy little camera, and it shoots 4K. So there we go. Norm thinks that it's perfect for photographing my sheep, because apparently I have a field of sheep now ever since that day that we did the hiking video.
Oh, that's nice.
And Norm points out that you have to forget the previous connections on your device for SnapBridge to work.
That's right.
Yes, this is very true. Another little thingy, someone was asking why the Z cameras don't have the negative digitizing functionality. Basically, I think it's because they haven't yet brought out a native macro lens for it, and it needs the 60mm macro. You can use the ES2 or the ES1 with your Z.
Because otherwise you got the FTZ, then you got ES2,
like
then you got the lens. Yeah.
It's a whole thing. But it's not a problem, really, because if you wanted to, for example, shoot your slides or your negs in RAW, that's the only way that you can do it. You can't use the negative digitizing function when you're shooting in RAW. It just produces JPEGs.
Yeah, so this is the way I would say. If you want to do a proper digitizing of the negatives, you want to shoot RAW anyway. You don't want to do it on camera.
Yeah.
It's the same like as HDR functionality. We've got HDR functionality built into the camera, but if you want to do proper HDR, you can break it
like
and shoot 3 or 5 exposures.
Or something.
Absolutely.
Now, D. Crowther says ISO 12.8K and over is it crazy good or is crazy good, and I'm not sure which, but I'm guessing
I'll take both.
We'll take it's crazy good, which is fantastic. So we're pretty much wrapping up now. If you have any other questions, feel free to pop them here below. Simon is keeping an eye on the comments to answer questions. We will also watch the comments back later on. If you have any interest in the D780, let us know. I mean, in conclusion, who do you think the D780 is for?
I'm preparing to spill my coffee right now. So, in conclusion.
Put it away. So, who do you think it's for?
I think if you're a professional photographer and you don't like change, then get D780. It's proven, it's trusty, it's a workhorse. We know the mirrorless is all exciting, but a lot of technology, while we're talking about a lot of technology, a lot of performance is not there yet. So we will check next week, of course. But currently, it's proven. If you want a workhorse, if you're shooting on a daily basis, you're a newspaper photographer, you're a keen enthusiast, wedding guy, sports photographer, this is the camera for you. Again, it's not £3,000 like D850. Well, it's 2.5.
Yeah.
It's very good, and small and lighter as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you're not yet convinced about the mirrorless system yet, watch this space. But there was a very poignant pause there. But if you're not convinced about the mirrorless system yet, or you've got lots of older AFD lenses or lenses that essentially aren't in the Z system yet, then a DSLR is still an excellent way to go. To be honest, I prefer the optical viewfinder to an electronic viewfinder. That's one of the big deals for me, I would say. And there's a number of reasons why having a DSLR I think is better, although it's a heavier camera.
If you want a proper feel.
Proper job. Andy says if you want to do proper neg conversions, use the PB6 and the PS6. Yes, you could do it that way if you really want to. Goodness me. But if you're a pro, you need the grip, apparently, according to Norm. So there we go.
And I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, because I don't ever use a grip. But I think that if you do use the grip a lot, then yes, you have to look at the D850. That's the only next logical step up. As a point, the D750 now is the cheapest FX body brand
That's right.
new.
It's like just over £1,000.
Yeah,
about 1,100.
1,150. So. And it's still being made, as far as we know. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll discontinue it next week or whatever. But I don't
Rest
know
in
anything.
Peace F6.
Rest in peace D750. I don't have any inside skinny on that one. But it seems I did ask the question of Nikon, like, why are you keeping the D750 alongside the D780? To be honest, it's the price point.
Price points.
Makes sense.
Think about new iPhone and the previous generation of iPhones is always available.
Yeah.
So you have two different price points.
It's a good point.
And that's the thing. D810 was still out for about 6 months when D850 was released. We had 7500 and 7200 at the same time, two very recent. We
can actually still get the D5. And the D6 is the current camera. So yeah, it does happen that way. They very slowly phase out the older bodies until there's no more demand for them.
And I think it's a good way, because then you can choose the camera depending on your budget.
There you go. Exactly. There's lots of speculation about what we're going to talk about next week.
Okay, what's in the pipeline?
Shh, can't say anything. We will be doing lots of video. We're going to release some pre-recorded videos on Wednesday and Thursday, and then we're doing our live stream on Friday. So
lots of content out.
Lots of content. So please do subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, because that is the best way to get notified. We also send out to our weekly newsletter list when we publish a new video. So if you want to join our mailing list, you can also do that via the link below. There's going to be a link below. Good. What happened to Becky's plan to demonstrate the bellows? It's on the schedule. But you see, things just keep coming up, Brian. I'm not putting it off.
Yeah,
Honest.
The good thing is we are not really bored in terms of what we can shoot.
No.
We've got lots of ideas.
Lots.
And we just need lots of time.
That's right. We just need a whole week dedicated to just doing filming. But we also work in the shop, so there you go.
Yeah, we planned something else for next week, but then things came up.
That's right, exactly. So watch this space. We will we will see you next week for another rendition. Thank you very, very much for joining us. We hope you have a lovely weekend. Thank you to everyone who contributed to the Coffee Fund and anyone that contributes using the PayPal Me link afterwards. If you're not watching this live, you keep that cup away from me. Give it away! And we will see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.